Hey y'all, welcome back to the She Speaks Mother-Daughter Reflections podcast. I'm your host, Erica Montgomery. This is my co-host,
Liza Montgomery.
there she is. And this is the podcast where we talk about all things under the sun and mother-daughter perspectives, organic and authentic conversations. Today's topic is going to be dating green flags and dating red flags. This came about a little bit from our first episode where we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I feel like especially in like me growing up and in my mom's experiences with dating and marriage, we have a lot of conversations of where we see eye to eye in dating and then where we don't see eye to eye in dating. And so I think it'll just be interesting to kind of talk about what we think is acceptable versus not acceptable, what we can let slide and what we don't let slide, and just give you a little bit of our insight and perspective experiences on that. So without further ado, we're going to hop into the episode.
Don't be offended.
We're going to start with relationship or dating. I keep saying relationship. Dating red flags and dating green flags. And maybe let's define what dating is just for like general understanding of the topic. But to me, dating is like not necessarily even boyfriend or girlfriend. It can be, but dating more so on like you met somebody and you're getting to know each other, going out on like dates, restaurants, movies, fun activities, like the steps before actually becoming like into an exclusive relationship. To me, that's what dating is.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I would agree.
And so, from your personal experience, and again, these are different generations and different time periods. And so, to your perspective and your dating life and like the things that you've learned, what are some red flags that would come up that you'd be like, okay, maybe this isn't somebody I would want to continue to get to know, or like I have to keep mental note of that if we do continue this relationship?
Well, definitely red flags for me are like possessiveness or a person that wants to keep you to himself or has a hard time with you having other relationships, not romantic relationships, but just like friendships or even like sometimes within your own family, like they question too much talking or interaction with certain people, questioning who's on the phone, just like that sense of needing to know what you're doing. And it comes from a negative place, and it comes from a place of insecurity or trust issues.
So what do you think, because in this generation sometimes, I think a lot of things that kind of categorize as red flags, and I do think it's relatively, it's not relational, but everybody has their own, it's a preference, right? So like some things that may bother you won't bother me.
Yeah.
And so, take this with a grain of salt, but to some women, like financial status plays a big role. So like the first date where you take me to go, I think usually like a safe bet is always like somewhere to eat because you're able to like really talk to the person. But if it's like some women are like, it needs to be fine dining, like really nice restaurant, and some people are like, I'm okay if we pick up some tacos from like the joint down the street and then we just go sit at the park type shit.
Right.
Does that play a role for you at all? Was that a thing when you were like 20?
Me personally, it wasn't that hard. I came from the perspective that I wanted to get to know the person.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter what we were doing. I mean, of course, I didn't want to be like in a
Warehouse.
Scary, or a dangerous area, or a place where the food was like not safe to eat.
Yeah.
But my not my expectations. I don't want to use the word expectations, but my comfort zone would probably be very, very easy, very laid back, very not, not expecting the whining and dining.
I feel like for me, the whining and dining is almost like, I don't know if intimidating is the right word, but it's almost like not, for a first date, I feel like I want to be comfortable. And I want to feel, I can't get to know you entirely if I'm not comfortable. And so if I had to like get super dolled up and like wear like a dress and like heels for the first date, I'm like, and that could be also, I think that's a lot of different factors. Like, I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily dress super like that anyway. And so I feel like first impressions to me are like really important. So I don't want to give you a first impression that I can't uphold. And a nice dress and heels is not something that I'm going to uphold. So I think that's also something in my brain where I'm like, I don't want you to take me to the nicest fucking restaurant in town where I have to get so dressed up for our first date.
Yeah.
I'd rather you take me like mini golfing, or like I like nature a lot. So it's like if you take me on a hike, or if you're playing, excuse you, if you're playing to like what you know I like, we can go out and eat. And also it's like we can still get to know each other, like walking to the park, or like going to like a sports game, or like movies aren't great first dates, but like something like that. I feel like it's a more casual environment for me to get to know you versus like just doing something because you think I would like that. So I don't know what happened. The camera got cut off for whatever reason, but we're just gonna get back into it. But going back to, I think, to try to sum up what we were talking about, I think because of different generations, I think because of technological advancement, and maybe just like, through time things evolve and change, whether it be for better or for worse. I think the level of commitment, or the level of the definition of dating has changed amongst generations. And I think that's really what we were getting at. And so I think for my mom and for me, our definition or our experience of what dating means is a little bit different.
Yeah. And I think culturally too. I think a
Yeah.
big part of my dating experiences were very culturally influenced, coming from parents that had very, very different views on dating.
Yeah. Were there any that were like, I guess, from your cultural experience that were like defined as red flags that you maybe grew up with that you are rethinking if they're actually red flags or not, or are they still the same?
No, I think the red flags are definitely the same. I think that a red flag here would be the same as a red flag there. Perhaps the only thing that I would consider differently is like what the expectations are. So for example, if at first date you decide that you're going to go Dutch and that everybody's just going to pay for their own meal or whatever, culturally that would be considered a red flag, because the expectation is that the man is
pays.
supposed to pay.
I would agree.
So things like that.
It's hard to describe because I feel like sometimes we're saying the same thing, then we're not saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But there's been times where it's like I'm getting to know a guy, and then we won't necessarily define it as a date, but it's like we're going out together.
Right.
To get to know each other.
Right.
And I have no problem paying for myself or paying for us, but I've noticed like in my head that if I do that and you let me, you're automatically like now you're considered a friend. Like now we're besties. That's it. We're not dating. Which it's like, and again, it's not necessarily a bad thing in that like maybe his intention was not to date. Like we never solidified that intention around this meeting. But it's like, okay, now that I know this,
That you paid.
that I paid, I'm assuming that either you do not have the intention to date me or court me, or if that's what you wanted and this is okay with you, then you're not really the type of person that I want to really go out with. to each his own. You know what I mean? There's some men that might hear that and be like, well, fuck you. Or like there's some women that like are okay with paying on the first date. I'm just not. If that, I don't want you to be my man, respectfully. If you're not at least going to try to do that on the first date. On top of the fact that it's like I've been on like specific first dates, like this is clearly a date. And the man pays. It's usual in those situations for me. And I've noticed in my head that it's like, again, it's not necessarily, it's more like a yellow flag for me, because I'm like, you know, if we haven't solidified anything and I'm just getting to know you, I'm not going to hold it against you as part of your character. But I know for me, it's like I want somebody who's going to be like, oh, wait. Like, don't let me pay for it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You can take it.
Right.
I don't need to be independent all the time. Oh, you know what's a red flag for me? That also is like, in my head, it differentiates if we're friends or not. If we're walking on the street and you don't make me move to the inside of the sidewalk.
Oh my gosh. But isn't that very cultural as well?
What do you mean?
I totally agree with you, but I think that comes from I thought that was just like a Puerto Rican thing or a Latino thing. I've never really
I've only experienced that with black men. I don't date Latinos. I've never dated a Hispanic.
Interesting. Because the black men that I've dated, that wasn't even like an issue. That was never a thing with people here.
That they make you walk on the inside of the sidewalk? Nah. I've only experienced that. I mean, most of my dating history has been black men.
Yeah.
And from like, maybe like, I forgot who showed it to me first. Like, who initiated that first. But I feel like it was like late high school, early college that I don't remember who it was.
Right.
But I remember it was like a first thing that somebody was like in there, like through conversation, they were like, no, like you are going to walk on the inside of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel secure, like protected. Like, I
no,
like
absolutely. But like I would think that if a man did that, he would do that all the time, not just with dating, but even if he's walking like with his sister, with his mom. And I've never, you know what I mean? I've never experienced that. I've never experienced a man in this country that was raised here saying, hold up, like, you know, you're on the wrong side, move over. Like, I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't. It's always been like men from the island or my uncles or my dad, you know. Not even my brother does that.
Well, right. That's why I'm like, again, it's not a deal breaker. It's not for me, it's not an indicator of your character. It's just more so like because when I date to marry. So regardless of how frequently or whatever, like I'm always dating in the sense of like, is this going to last? Is this going to hold longevity?
Right.
And so in my mind, it's like, again, I don't dislike you because you don't put me on the inside of the sidewalk.
Right.
However, I want to feel protected, like as a woman, and I want to make sure that my mother's protected. I want to make sure that our children are protected.
Yes.
And so I want a man that is going to just do like the little things.
Yeah, absolutely.
My love language is also acts of service. So
Right.
it's like I need to see, like I like action more than words.
Right.
And so it's like, what do you do to make me feel safe? And that is one
Right.
thing where it's like automatically, whether it's a first date or I'm just like hanging out with you as a friend, maybe potentially exploring if we will go into dating.
Yeah.
That's something for me where it's like more like a yellow flag, not really a red flag, but it's like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't want to teach you that.
Yeah.
And I would hope that you kind of have like the idea of like, well, how do I make this girl feel safer in my care?
Yeah.
So like that's something that for me is kind of like okay, you didn't do that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure how I feel about this.
So for me, another red flag would be a person, like we're talking about me right now dating, right? For me, a person, I would say maybe after 30, if they don't have a form of transportation, that would be such a red flag.
It's a red flag? Well, I guess, yeah, after 30.
I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be a specific type. It doesn't have to be anything at all. But can you at least
figure it out?
Yeah. Can you find a way to keep, to purchase, to lease, to, you know, finance a mode? And I'm not talking about like a motorcycle. It has to be like, it has to be an automobile. because I feel like that, like, again, that's not for me, but for that individual, that's a sense of responsibility. It says something about you that
Yeah.
you can do that, that you are aware of, because having a vehicle, there's maintenance. So are they keeping the tires, do the tires have air? Are they taking it to get serviced? Are they, fixing the squeaks and the
Right.
and the beeps? That says something about the person.
I can see that. I get that.
Yeah.
There was I never thought about it like that. I've also never dated anybody who was without some sort of transportation. Actually, that's a lie. I have dated somebody. But
Yeah.
more recently, I would say I started dating like in my brain, like actually dating to like meet people when I was like 16. Sorry. And when you're 16, like there's certain things that you don't really care about.
Well, that's why I was saying, like, at a certain age, right?
Yeah.
Because the people that I dated when I was in high school didn't have automobiles either.
I don't really think about it because I feel like it's so common now.
Yeah.
However, there was this one time we weren't dating. I met this guy. I was at a birthday party, and it was like a friend of the birthday girl that I met at the party, and we were just talking, like sitting on the couch, like vibing, yada yada. And the conversation came up of like, oh, like you should come, because he was in New York. He lives in New York. He was like, you should come down to New York, or maybe I can come back up to Connecticut. We should like hang out. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. And he's like, yeah, you just gotta pick me from the train station. And I was like, oh. And again, it's like, I didn't realize that was like a big deal for me.
Yeah.
But in that moment, and also like the way that he carried out the conversation, I was like, oh, like. And again, it's different because people in New York
city
don't really drive like that.
Yes.
Like, it's a lot easier to get around, but it feels like, again, that whole like on a first date, for example, when I'm first meeting you, like I want to be courted. So it's like I would expect you to maybe like pick me up, or like you find the means to try to like take the initiative in that scenario.
Yeah.
And in that moment, also in like the experience that I had prior to that, because I came out of that like one relationship.
Yeah.
It's like I'm looking for somebody who has a little bit more, who's going to like take the action. Like I want someone who's going to take initiative.
Right.
And in that scenario, it didn't feel like, I felt like I was taking more initiative.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's where I'm like, another red flag for me, a little bit, is like that. How much initiative are you able to take? I feel like I come from that because my big love language is acts of service. Like that's a huge one for me because I will take initiative. I take a lot of initiative. I'm very independent, and I think that there's pros and cons to that. However, to me, it's really important that I have a partner that is able to take as much, if not even more, initiative than I am, or is able to balance it out, or like at least wants to take some things off my plate.
Yes.
And so if I feel that on the first date or on the first couple of dates, that whether you want to or not, or whether you have the resources to do it or not, if you're not able to like see that, or like able to like kind of take things off my plate a little bit, then it's really difficult for me to think that it's going to go anywhere. There's certain things that I already have foundationally. And so if you can't add upon that, and I'm seeing that if anything, it's going to be more of like a chore for me. Like, I got to go pick you up. I got to pay for us to go on vacation. I got to pay for us to go out. It's difficult for me, regardless of the situation, because I'm like, why would I do that when I could just do it myself at that point? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's really happening here? Mind you, that's like case by case, because, you know, I do think that I'm very graceful in that, like, you know, sometimes people have seasons, and maybe you got in a crazy accident, and financially, like, you're in between jobs that you're trying. Like, there's different cases.
Right.
It's just going to be difficult for me to, like, get over that because of certain scenarios in my past.
Yeah. No, I totally was thinking, like, I can totally agree with you. Like, if I was, like, we're coming from our experiences. Like, we live in Connecticut. Like, everyone, you need a car a little more than you would in the city.
For sure.
Or in maybe even Washington, D.C. or something. But for me, it's all about like that conversation. Like if I was dating someone from the city and they were like, well, if you come out here, and the you know that it's very transparent that they don't have a car, but we can Uber and he takes care of that, and you know whatever mode of getting places is either, you know, public,
Yeah.
and or that maybe he'll rent a car for the day, like
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But
yeah.
as long as he takes care of it,
Right.
then I guess in that case, that's what he's normally doing anyway. Then I would consider something like that. I would
Yeah.
feel comfortable with that. But yeah, if it's like, well, come pick me up at the train station and we can, and then you're driving your car the whole time, like,
It's just not fun to me anymore.
no.
Okay, we're gonna pivot into some green flags. What are some green flags, whether it was today or when you were dating back in the day, that you were like, ooh, like, I want to explore this guy more, like, I'm excited, like, it got you excited, got you wanting to see what he was about? What were some things that were like, sparked the interest for you?
I think that what sparks my interest, and I think it's a really good flag, is the way they talk about their family, like the way they talk about their mother. If they're really excited about like things that have occurred, or an event where they're going to be with family, or if or the way they express themselves about getting together with a brother, a sibling, or something's coming up, a family reunion, like things that demonstrate to me that they're very much involved in family events and gatherings, and that it sounds like they have a good time, that they have a good relationship, that things are healthy. That is a huge green flag for me.
I think for me, I would agree. Family dynamics are really important to me, or like what your relationship with your family is really important to me. I would argue, I like people that listen, and so if you can demonstrate signs that like I've said something to you and you actually took it in, it's a really big deal for me. So something that I'm thinking about is like one time it's no secret that I love nature. Like I love being outside. I love going on hikes. I love being at the beach. Anything nature wise, like I'm all for it. And I don't hide that. You can see it on my Instagram page. You can see it through my content. Yada yada yada. I'll talk about it with anybody. Like people will ask me like, "Oh, what do you like to do?" And I'm like, "Outside." Really easy. And so I went, not really on a date, more like a friendship, like get to know each other type of thing. But they picked that up, and for me, that's like, oh, like I feel seen, like because they took me. They were like, oh, meet me at X, Y, and Z place, and I'll show you one of my favorite spots. And it was like this nature trail through in New Haven that I've never seen. I used to live in New Haven, Connecticut, never seen. So to me, that's like a big deal. Like, wow, like you listened. On top of the fact that it's like something that I really enjoy, and it was like kind of like a hidden gem for me, like shit like that. I'm like, thank you. Like I like to feel seen in all relationships, whether it's like friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships. Like I like to feel like I'm not just talking and you're not like taking it in. That's like a really big deal for me. That and like kind of like what I said, the reverse of not feeling safe with my red flags is like feeling safe. So like if you're gonna take initiative with anything, or if I feel like life's a little bit easier around you, that's a huge green flag for me. And it doesn't have to be like you taking all the financial burden. It's more so just like again, if you're listening, or like if you pick up on like my schedule, or if like you want to know like the little things that are going on so you can kind of help where you can, that's a big deal for me. That like moves mountains in my brain.
Another green flag for me is like positive mindset,
Ooh, period.
like optimistic,
Absolutely.
like someone that can see the glass half full,
Totally.
or look for
Positive.
positivity in anything, or the
Yup.
way they express themselves about other people, about their jobs, if they have like that positive mentality, I think it's so important. And for me, it's very attractive.
Yep. I agree with you. Like positivity is like such a big deal for me. I think for a lot of people in our family. But with that, a red flag for me is if a lot of your mode of conversation or all you talk about is like other people, or like oh, so and so did this, or if it's like real gossipy, And mind you, like, we're all human, like, certain conversations come up, or sometimes you just need, like, a mode to vent, and you're just kind of talking about your feelings, but not necessarily talking about people. Like, that's one thing, you know what I mean? But if all we ever talk about, or all you ever say is, like, something negative about X, Y, and Z person, or it's like if if we're, like, on the street and we run into, like, somebody, and they're like, oh my God, hey, and y'all, like, all happy, 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 and then the minute we walk away, you're like, oh, I can't stand that person. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
bro, like, so why are you acting like y'all
Mm-hmm.
besties?
Right.
That's difficult for me. Because then I'm like, well, what are you saying about me when I'm not around type
Yeah.
shit. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yes, I agree with you. Positivity is like, it's up. Especially in this day and age. Like, there's so many things that can get you down. And
Right.
again, like, people have their seasons and their days. But if you can have, like, a positive, like, growth mindset, that's super important.
Yeah.
Super, super, super important. Another green flag, and this is like again a case by case basis, but if we have similar interests, um, like again, I don't think you're meant to be for everybody, and so that's like if I love superhero movies and you don't like them, that's something for me that I'm like, if you don't like them, then what are we really gonna talk
Right.
about?
Right.
Again, and it's not a bad thing. Like we can still be cool, but it's like, are we really meant to like date or like go further? Probably not.
Yeah.
Not in a. And there's some people that I've had that conversation with, and they're like taken aback. But I'm like, think about it for real. Like that's like if a new Spider-Man movie comes out or if a new like Avenger movie comes out, I'm gonna want to go see that. And I'm gonna want to see it with like somebody that I enjoy time with. If we're together all the time, I'm gonna want you to come see it. Not to say that these people can't learn to love those things. However, if you're like, I don't like those types of movies and I love those types of movies, that's kind of difficult for me. You know what I mean? And that's a small example, but it's like if I love to be outside, if I love to be social with my family, if I love to travel, and you don't like to do any of those things, those are like big ticketed items for me.
Yeah.
So, it seems so small, I feel like, and sometimes I don't think people always consider that it's like, yeah, like it's great to be alone with somebody and it's great to explore how you feel with that person when it's just y'all two. But like what else can y'all do? Like I can't be cooped up in the house all day. Every single day. And some people are different, you know what I mean? But I love to travel. I love to be outside. I love to see new things. And so I think that's really important for me that other people have their own interests, number
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
and also can share or at least like understand mine as well. Are you open at least to learning other things? Are you
Yeah.
open to exploring? That's a really big deal for me. Because again, it's like I can't be mad at you that you've never seen a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And also, like, are you against seeing Marvel movies? Like, like is that a thing?
I think another green flag for me would be just a person that I can have conversations with.
Yes.
Because sometimes I feel like I don't know, I can get the sense that it's like pushed or that it's like you're kind of probing, like, or I feel, right? I get the impression that I feel on the defensive.
Yeah.
But there are people that it just flows. It just happens. It's just like, you're talking and then you're listening and it's like back and forth, like this exchange, and it's very genuine, very organic. So I think for me, that's a green flag versus sitting at a table and there's like silence and there isn't like, and I'm like really thinking hard, like, what do I say?
What's
What do
the
I
next
say?
topic?
Yeah. Yeah. So
It is
someone
difficult.
that that I can feel that, that flow with, that connection, that the conversations are, or that maybe it's just one topic, but it's just, so much to talk about, and there's that comfort zone, and also someone that's emotionally balanced. I think that helps with conversations as well if you can detect each other's comfort, what's comfortable for them, and what I feel comfortable sharing with you. I think that has a lot to do with making the product would be a good conversation.
I can agree. We hope y'all enjoyed this little conversation. This was fun, very eye opening. Also very interesting to like establish different definitions and like explore dating in your time versus like this time and how it's different, and even the cultural differences, right?
Yeah.
And how we've been raised and everything.
Right.
So we hope we gave you guys some perspective and something to think about. We also wanted to incorporate something in our series of like things that we like from this past week, right? So every single episode, you're gonna get something that we're like really into, and we'll talk a little bit about it. This week it's books. So we're both really into our specific books right now. I'll let my mom go first of what she's
Yes.
reading, and
So
if
I
you
have a
want, you can.
colleague that shared this book with me. She read it earlier, I want to say earlier in the year, maybe a year ago, and she was really, really excited for me to read it. It's called Solito by Javier Zamora. It's a memoir, and it's about this young boy that from El Salvador, and his journey crossing the border and coming to the U.S. I'm halfway through it. I cannot put it down. It is a great book, and my colleague shared it with me months ago, maybe even a year ago. And she kept saying, have you started reading it? Have you started reading it? And I hadn't gotten to it, and I hadn't gotten to it. And finally, the last day of school, I took it off the shelf and I started reading it, and I'm loving it. And I'm
Good.
very excited to have conversations with her because there are words in here that are Spanish. And that was the whole reason why she wanted me to read it, because she wanted to have like a conversation about the book later and to see if she was right about some of the vocabulary, about some of the terms that were used, to make sure that she understood the book. So I guess we're going to have like a little book club between the both of us after I'm done reading it.
Fun.
Yeah.
Very
So
good.
Solito, Javier Zamora, really great, really good book.
Very fun.
Yes.
I love when people give you books, because then you get to see like from your perspective, like why do you think I would like
Yeah.
this, and it makes really good conversation.
Right, right.
Love that. My book is so fun. So for context, I'm a huge nonfiction reader. I started reading a lot, I would say, probably no, in 2022, I would argue. I started like reading for fun more often. And it was all like self-help, nonfiction books, psychology, philosophy, things like that. And when 2024 started, I was like, okay, like I feel like love learning, love exploring, love expanding my mindset and in that space. But I was like, I need like a break from reality a little bit. Like I need something more exciting. And I was like, I haven't gotten into. I used to read fiction when I was younger for fun, but like nothing since then. And so I'm sure some of y'all have heard like this is like a trend. So A Court of Thorns and Roses is the first book from Sarah J. Maas of this series. I picked it up, I believe, in January, either December of 2023 or January 2024. Read the first book and I was obsessed, bro. It's so good. If you like, it's a fantasy book, so it's not for everybody. But if you like the idea of like Harry Potter or Narnia, it's that type of fantasy where it's like mystical creatures. There is some war. There's a really good plot, and it's super well written. And then there's like a love story involved, which I eat up. So this is the fifth book of the series. It's so freaking good. 10 out of 10 recommend. And it literally, like, when I tell you a break from reality, it is like I get swept up in it. Like, there's times where it's like I'll be at work or like I'll be going out through my day, and I'm like, oh my god, I want to go like read my book. Like I'm almost like lost in the fantasy versus reality of like what real life is. It's so good. This one's a court of silver flames. So if you know anything about the series, the first like four books are with Feyre, and she's like the main character. This book is more focused on her sister Nesta. So 10 out of 10 recommend. It is my super guilty pleasure. It's so good. So yeah, love it. Thank you again for joining us on this week's episode. We hope you'll join us again next Sunday for the next conversation. And until then, we hope you have nothing short of a joyful week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.